Welcome to This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, brought to you by Riverside Auto Group and produced by WLAQ Sports. Each week, we bring you insight, analysis, interviews, and our predictions for the week's matchups around the Northwest Georgia area. Here are your hosts.
Good afternoon, WLA crew. We're glad to have you with us for This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. I'm Ian Griffin, alongside Matt Davis of WLAQ Sports, and we've got our young gun over here in the ugliest shirt I've ever seen. Grayson Atkins, how are you today, buddy?
We're doing pretty good. I had to wear this, but I probably wore it on a bad day because I walk in here and I see Calvin Johnson bobblehead, Georgia Tech Coke, and then I see this little sign right here. So.
Well, that was because I knew he was going to do that to us today, and I thought I would offset that a little bit by bringing a little bit of class into the studio today with our Georgia Tech stuff.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate that.
So anyway.
Balancing things out a little bit.
Exactly. Well, this is This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, and the first thing we're going to do is kind of go back and take a look at last week.
Can we not?
And, well, I mean, we didn't have any differences, did we?
I don't think so,
Yeah.
but I'm still trailing either way. I'm bringing up the end here.
Well, we'll also look at the overall for Ian there. Yeah. But last week we're all 7-2. The ones that we missed were Dade County at Christian Heritage, and then Hiram at Cass. And, of course, one of the things we'll talk about when we get to the Cass Cedartown game is they had an instance in that game, which was unfortunate, that, we'll see how they adjust to. But we can go ahead and talk about it now if you want to a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Throughout this season, we've had a new segment where we have a featured game of the week. And we hear from both coaches from those teams. Unfortunately, today, Steve Gates, head coach of the Cass Colonels, couldn't be with us because he's at the hospital with his quarterback, who suffered a broken leg, season-ending injury in that game against Hiram. And I remember sitting in the booth with you guys during the Darlington game and looking at the score. Cass was up 21-7, and then the next time I looked, they were trailing. And there could be a lot of circumstances that lead to a comeback like that, but I found out after the game about McWhorter's injury, and it's just super unfortunate. Leader of the team, but certainly understand why Coach Gates couldn't get with us for the interview today, and definitely have Brody in our thoughts and prayers as we go forward.
No question about it. Thanks for giving us some information about that. Another thing I want to mention before. Oh, wow, we do want to mention the overall. Grayson and I have the lead. We're each 36-8. And Ian, you're bringing up the rear there. 34-10 is your record.
Two games back, man.
2 games is not
That's
insurmountable, but we'll see.
Tough, though.
We'll see if we have any differences coming up today. We very well could.
I don't know if the rookie knows about the Rick Award.
We should bring that in for the camera. That's
what is the Rick
interesting.
Award?
Yeah.
Well,
we'll show you. When we take the break, if I have enough time to dart up to the front office there and get it and bring it back, we will. If not, we'll debut that coming up on next week's show. Yeah. We might should have shown them this before he agreed to this contest.
Yeah, that's right. Whoever loses gets the Rick Award.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, there's
it's a long-standing, shameful award to win.
Yeah, and you have to display it on your Christmas tree. The family Christmas tree.
I'm not putting that on my Christmas tree.
Yeah, you hadn't even seen it yet. Wait until you see it.
Yeah.
Just because I didn't see it doesn't mean that I'm gonna put it on my Christmas tree. It's not happening. We
got a comment on our Facebook Live feed. Lou Essick is chiming in, and he likes your shirt.
Thank you, Lou Essick. Hate to.
It looks like a bad Disney after-school special. That's what it looks like to me.
I would rather take Kirby Smart over Brent Key. We're going to end that conversation right there.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's going to argue with the results that Mr. Smart has gotten at Athens.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
All right. One of the things we do want to mention, one of the games that was on our list to pick today, we will not be picking because it's not going to happen. Horizon Christian Academy Warriors were to play out at Coosa, where Unity Christian School Lions play their home games this year. Horizon was coming into the game 0-5. I'm not sure of the situation there, but they had to forfeit. And I'm just totally speculating here, but looking at the 0-5 start, my guess is it may be that they don't have enough kids or something like that. Usually with that type of situation, that plays a role into it. But I'm not sure. I do know because I talked to Russ Dyer, the athletic director at Unity today, in a Facebook message, and asked him about it, and he said they had to forfeit, and Unity did try to get another game on the schedule for this week, but it just didn't work out, so they won't play this week. But they are 3-0, off to a great start, and definitely want to congratulate Coach Humphreys and and the whole Unity crew over there for a good start to the season. I know they hate not getting a game this week.
Gets you out of your rhythm, but they've been dominant so far in those 3 wins. They've looked really good. Certainly a threat to repeat as state champions.
Indeed. So the first game that we're going to talk about, we're going to be moving all the games that we talk about this week for the first week this season on this show. They're all going to be region games, because last week we did have a couple of non-region games that we talked about, but that is not the case this week. So we're going to start with Region 6A D1. We're going to talk about Darlington at Haralson County, Model at Bremen against the Blue Devils, and the Temple Tigers at Pepperell Dragons. So we're going to start with Darlington. And Ian, you and I were there last week. Well, Grayson was there too doing stats for us, so we were all there. And, of course, Darlington picked up one of the biggest wins that they've had in program history, I think, in a while, defeating Whitfield Academy, getting revenge from last year's first-round playoff loss. And, boy, revenge is sweet, isn't it?
Revenge is sweet, and the back-and-forth nature of that football game just speaks to the resolve of this Tigers team and Wayne Groves and his coaching staff's efforts to really get them to focus on shaking it off and moving on to the next play and having that mentality, because there were more twists and turns than an episode of Days of Our Lives in that game. And Matt and I it was tense in the booth. But for them to pull it off and get the interception at the end in the end zone, Sammy Konchesky sealed it with that. Moved to 2-2. And have some momentum going into region play after that tough 0-2 start. I think it means a lot. Now you hit the reset button. And again, you have to move on. You can't really dwell on the success of last week. While it does build your confidence, you've got to focus on this Rebels team. And you're looking at a team that's 1-3, but they've played some tough opponents. And we talked with Coach Groves about that. So you've got to ignore the record, focus, go on the road, and try to get it done. I think the Tigers know the recipe they have to follow to win. Don't turn the ball over. Clock control on offense. Grind it out. Make them beat you. Don't beat yourselves. And I think the Tigers are equipped to do just that.
Yeah, I think so. And a couple of things we do want to mention about this matchup. Going into this week, I noticed that the Georgia High School Football Daily honored Darlington's offensive line for their performance last week. Bryson Jones, Evan Parton, Colton Moman, Stephen Moore, Ty Wood, Henry Ledbetter, who shifted positions, had to change jerseys during the game.
Shout out to the kid here for making sure we knew that. So thank you, Grayson. Good eyes out there on the sideline.
Definitely good eye on that. Yeah. And to see a guy like that, in the Coach Grove show, specifically talking about Henry Ledbetter, all the great things that Coach Grove said about his team leadership that he showed. And we didn't know this because obviously we were in the booth. They were down on the sidelines. But that wasn't something that they had to reach out and ask him to do. He volunteered to do it, and he's just willing to do whatever he needs to do to try to help the team win. And you love hearing stories like that.
Yes, I missed an opportunity. We both did with Coach Groves to give a little Fogarty reference there. Put me in, Coach. Who's ready to go? Whatever he needs to do to help the team. So, yeah, you're absolutely right.
So we're going to flip over to the other side of the table. Obviously, we're not picking this one because we're calling the game on the radio. But, Grayson, you have any thoughts you want to share about this Darlington-Haralson County matchup?
Yeah, I mean, looking back at it last week, I think it speaks to the testament of the pedigree of what we see from Darlington. We've always known the toughness of how they play when Tommy Atha was there, and now we see it with Coach Groves. We saw them go down 13-0 both drives. Whitfield Academy was on the football field, and they were just able to storm back. And then eventually we saw Darlington really start to take over the game. And then a few miscues there from Darlington where Whitfield Academy got the ball back. And Mason Hollingsworth there for Whitfield Academy, all those rushes he had for over 170 yards and those touchdowns, that they got themselves a really good running back out there at Whitfield Academy. But we just saw Darlington keep punching, and eventually they were able to finally pull through with the win, and that's going to be a big turning point there for Darlington to finally move into region play. And even though this probably helps them come playoff time, because back in the lower classes, it's no longer by region seeding, it's now by power rankings, and that win will really project them there in the power seedings.
No question about it. So I think it's going to be a great game. Looking forward to going down to Haralson County. In my years of broadcast, I've never been there, so I'm excited about a new opportunity there.
New venue for us.
That's right. Let's move on to the next game, and this one we are going to pick, and we're gonna start it off on the other side of the table because he's got a little insight into this one that you and I don't have because he walks the halls with these kids.
All right.
But we're talking about the Battle of the Blue Devils, and this edition of it's going to be played down at Bremen. Model Blue Devils heading down to Bremen. Both teams Blue Devils. Series history-wise, Bremen leads it 8-6-1. The last meeting in the series was a 17-0 victory for the Bremen Blue Devils in the first round of the playoffs a few years back. I think it was 2019. But Grayson, give us your take on this one, man.
Yeah, so we just saw Model come off a bye week. They played Tryon the week before. You know, they're up 12-0, unable to finish the game. But other than that, there's a whole lot of results that you can be proud of if you're Coach Honeycutt. Just seeing, the team, even though you didn't win, you fought till the end, and really in the end, that's all that really matters. And they've also played a really, really tough non-region schedule. We saw Cass. I got to saw them in person, and they're the real deal. It's really sad what happened to Brody. But we look at this now, and now Model, they're moving into region play, and the thing that I notice about this region, no game in this region is going to be a gimme. Darlington plays Haralson County, Pepperell plays Temple, and Model opens with Bremen. These are just some tough games. So it's going to be a really, really tough region. For me, if Model can run the ball, it's going to be a very interesting game. Colin Watson, three-headed monster with Jane Daniels, Gage McWhorter, even Rich Hardacre, a little bit in there, and Jared Terhune and Brantley Patch, might I add, switching off, running that two-quarterback system. But the difference for me in this game is probably just going to be Bremen's defense. They're one of those blue-chip programs that are just going to be able to chew games out. They're going to be able to beat you with a running attack, maybe run a little bit of air raid here and there. So I just think that, yes, I'm a homer, so I'm obviously going to root for Model, but it's hard for me to overlook what Bremen is able to do on offense and defense. So I'm going to have to take Bremen in this bowl game.
This guy picked against his school. He's got to walk the halls. That's a tough one. Me and Matt always want to pick the home team, but we root for everybody in Floyd County. So this guy's got to walk the walk after picking it. But Grayson, I agree with you. I think this is going to be a defensive struggle. Bremen lost their quarterback, I do believe.
Yeah, they did.
And that's going to hinder them on offense, but you hit the nail on the head. They're really good on defense. Losing by 20 points to Bowden, there's no shame in that game. And I believe that this Battle of the Blue Devils is going to be the first one to 20 wins. If Model can get some turnovers on the road and do what they did against Tryon and get out to an early lead, then maybe they can spring the upset here. But I'm going to pick Bremen to win close.
I don't have a whole lot to add to this one. I'll agree with you guys. I'm going to take Bremen to win a close one, and it just depends on which team is able to get out there and set the tone on defense. I definitely think that's going to be very important in this football game. But at the end of the day, I think that Bremen, even with the loss of their quarterback, has a little bit more identity on the offensive side of the ball as well. So I'm going to take Bremen to win the game. But this is one of those ones that, it probably won't surprise me either way, but at the end of the day, I think the safer pick is to go with Bremen, especially since they're playing at home. So that's what I'm going to do. So we all agree. This is not good for you, Ian.
It's not good. We need some differences. Maybe this one.
All right. We're going to go on to the next game here on our list, and that is going to be the Temple Tigers playing at Pepperell down in Lindale. And this one has a lot of intrigue to it because obviously you look at the situation for the Pepperell Dragons so far this season. They're 0-4. Temple comes in 3-1. Pepperell leads this series 6-2. Dragons won it last year by 5 points. And there is no doubt in my mind that this Pepperell Dragons team has the talent to win this game. They have the talent to win some of the games they've played already, but they haven't been able to connect the dots for some reason this season. I'm not sure what's happening there. Having this game at home could help the cause. But when you look at this Temple Tigers team, Coach Nix, he's a hard-nosed football coach. I think they're going to be able to match the physicality of this Pepperell team, and not to mention they've got some athletic kids on this team. They've got some speed, and we all know what speed can do. It can really burn you from time to time. So this one I could see going either way as well, but in my view, the team that makes the least mistakes and plays the most physical is going to win the game. And so far, I think Temple's been able to do that a little bit better than Pepperell has. Certainly not picking on them. I think Pepperell will put it together. But this may be a tough week to do it. I don't know. What do you think, Ian?
this is my get off the schneid special for
He was
the
waiting
week.
on it.
I
You wanted to
was.
use
I
that
was.
term.
Pepperell 0-4. But if you look at the records, you might quickly say, oh, well, Temple's going to waltz into Lindale and get a win. But when you look under the hood a little bit here at the quality of opponents, I think Pepperell's played the tougher schedule. And yes, they've had leads. They've blown those leads. They're still trying to figure things out. But we know Sam Ross is a heck of a quarterback. We know Pepperell's got some good athletes. And I just feel like this is their Friday night. They're getting to hit the reset button. Everyone that's entering region play can forget about what's happened so far and focus on what they need to do to get one of those 4 playoff spots. I think that fresh attitude for the Dragons is going to be big. The home crowd is going to be rocking. Dragons off the schneid.
The milk jugs, the cannon, all that comes along with
Fire-breathing
being in
dragon.
Lindale.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a
all
great
happening.
atmosphere for sure. All right, well let's get Grayson's take on it.
You mentioned the cannon. I know I mentioned this game a lot, but
It
when
scares Matt.
Every
okay,
time.
I'll
I'll admit it.
Every
All
time.
right.
does.
Whenever
It
I
really
went
does.
to Model and Cass, I kid you not, after every single play that happened, it felt like they blew a cannon.
Yeah.
And it was so loud, it almost busted my eardrums. And I was probably less than 50 yards away from that thing, so it certainly was killing my ears. And they played it probably 48 times because it was 48-0 at halftime. So the thing for me in this Temple and Pepperell game is, yes, Temple, they're coming in this game with a better record. Matt already said this earlier, but Pepperell, they've played the likes of Cedartown, Daresville, Christian Heritage, Pickens, all those teams, formidable opponents in their respected classes. But now they finally get to move into a team that's in their class, in their region, and now I think it's time. I think Coach Haywood's going to have yeah, I think Coach Haywood, he's going to have them ready here in the region opener. And I said this earlier, every single game, it's not a gimme in this region. But something just tells me Dragons are going to be able to win. They're at home. All the pieces are coming together. I think with that bye week they just had, they're going to be able to have their minds right. So, Matt, you're all by yourself on this one. I'm going to have to take Pepperell.
All right. We'll
He
see
likes
what
the
happens.
limb. He likes the limb.
I do. It's a nice, comfortable spot for me. But, well, let's see. We're going to go ahead and take a break, and then when we come back, we're going to work our way into 7A Division I, talk about the Almerchi Indians going up to play the Chattooga Indians at the Little Bighorn. You got the Coosa Eagles playing the Gordon Central Warriors this weekend, and I guess that's only 2 games we're going to talk about in that region. A little bit later on in the program, towards the end, we will talk about our game of the week. That's going to be the Cass Colonels at Cedartown Bulldogs. We have an interview with Coach Jamie Abrams that we taped this morning that we're going to play back for you. So still a lot to come. This is This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, and we will be back after a word from our sponsor, RiversideAutoGroup.com.
Shop for your next car, truck, or SUV at Riverside Auto Group. Check out RiversideAutoGroup.com today to browse their selection or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, and the all-new Riverside GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group. Visit RiversideAutoGroup.com.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you tuning in, we are back, and it's the WLA crew, as Ian always says. It's starting to grow on me just a little more. So in this segment, we're going to talk about 7A D1. We're going to go with the Almerchi Indians at the Chattooga Indians, and then our next game, we're going to talk about the Coosa Eagles at the mighty Gordon Central Warriors. They're up in Calhoun. And our first game, we're going to talk about, as I just said it, Almerchi Indians at Chattooga Indians. So just like Model and Bremen, we have a battle of the mascots. And Almerchi, we've saw them play a few times this season. I got to see them in person whenever they played my school. They've played a few non-region games and got to really build up a lot of that confidence. And the thing is they They were undefeated all the way up until that Gordon Lee game there in the region opener, and that was a 42-0 beating. And that Gordon Lee, they are a fine program, and they always have been. And on the flip side, we see Chattooga. They've had similar success, but they're undefeated, unlike Armurchie. And I'm not saying that's a difference in the game because you different opponents, different schedules, different styles of play. But here's the thing for me in this game. Of course, the eye-opening Zayden Cook, top 5 in the nation in rushing yards with 10,000. Not 10,000. I looked that completely wrong. 1,060 yards rushing, top 5 in the nation, and their offensive line just got a shout out from Georgia High School Football Daily. They are the offensive line of the week there in that respective region or class. The difference for me in this game, I don't think Armurchie is going to be able to keep up with the running game of Chattooga, especially when you have a guy like Zayden Cook rushing for 250 yards a game, it seems like now. So I'm going to have to take Chattooga in this one.
Yeah, I'm starting to think Chattooga may have something special brewing. And as long as Zayden Cook can stay healthy, I think that the boys from Summerville have a chance to make a run at a region championship here. They get this game at home. Look, Eric Ballew's going to have his team ready to play. The Indians are going to be scrappy. They're going to fight hard. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be way too much Zayden Cook. And eventually he's going to break through and get his yards and get in the end zone, and it'll be enough for Chattooga to get the win.
I'm agree with you guys on this one. Chattooga leads the series 15-9. Armurchie's won the last couple in the series. So not only is Chattooga clicking on all cylinders, but, they look back at stuff like that. They remember that they didn't pick up wins in this series the last couple years, so they're looking for some revenge. They're playing some really excellent football, and the question is, and you guys have already posed it a couple of times, are they able to stop what they're going to get on that heavy dose of Zayden Cook? And if the answer to that question is yes, if Armurchie can slow him down, that leaves an opening. And then you'll find out what else Chattooga's got that they can throw, at the Armurchie Indians. But so far, nobody's been able to do that. And I think it's going to be a problem. I really do. I think the Indians will do everything they can to throw the kitchen sink at Chattooga and try to slow this down. I think they'll put up a good fight. But at the end of the day, Chattooga's rolling with Zayden Cook. And I think they're going to ride that as long as they can. And I think they'll win this game.
I feel like we're going to mention that name a whole lot. Whenever we
he's
do
already
this.
over 1,000 yards.
It's incredible.
That's impressive.
It really is. So the next game we've got on the list is going to be the Coosa Eagles. So we all agree on that one.
Yes, indeed.
We've got the Coosa Eagles, 2-2, 0-1 in region play. They're going to Gordon Central to play the Warriors, who are also 2-2, 0-1 in region play. Series history-wise, Coosa leads at 7-5. They've won the last 3, including a 33-6 drubbing last year. When you look at Coosa through their first 4 games, they've made some big strides in getting the program on solid footing. It's been fun to follow this team this year. I know there's a lot of excitement at the games. Crowds have been really good. The atmosphere has been great. There's a buzz going on with this team. Last week, they just ran into a buzzsaw, obviously, with Fannin. That's a very good football team. Shut them out. And I think Coosa does a good job here of just kind of licking their wounds and moving on to the next game. I think that's the mentality you're going to see with this team under the leadership that they have with Coach Cannon. And there's no question that Gordon Central's improved over the era in which they lost 31 games straight before the start of this season. Lenny Gregory is going to have a good game plan. They get this one at home. But at the end of the day, I just think that the Eagles are still a couple of steps ahead of the Warriors. And so, therefore, I'm going to take the Eagles to win this game on the road.
Yeah.
What do you think, Ian?
Yeah, this was a tough one, I think we're looking at 2 vastly improved teams on both sides of this matchup. And kind of get the feeling this will be a low-scoring contest. They only have one like opponent, and that was Southeast Whitfield. And I think Gordon Central beat them 62-0, and Coosa beat them 32-0. So you can't look too much into that, but I do think this will be a defensive matchup. Coach's kid at quarterback, I think the young Cannon delivers. He makes a play or two, and then Harrison East lighting people up from that Mike linebacker position. I'm taking Coosa. I think those 2 players are the difference in a close win.
If your reference point is Southeast Whitfield for a game, I think you need to.
We're talking about the young cannon, though, man. How about that?
I'm just saying, if you're, we mentioned Gordon Central and Coosa and having them like opponent, yes, but using Southeast Whitfield as a reference point, and I don't know, it just doesn't sound right
Those
to me.
poor Raiders.
Yeah.
Tisk, tisk, tisk.
Who you taking, Grayson?
All right, so both teams are moving on the right track. Gordon Central, they've been able to play a decent amount of games. You really get to be able to build some of that confidence. They've played a few Augusta teams, which, teams coming up from Chattooga to play teams in Calhoun, you just don't see that very often unless you're required to do that in the playoffs. So just seeing some of those sacrifices from both sides getting to play those teams. But I look at it this way. Coosa, they're Harrison East. They have a decent amount of playmakers. I'm not saying Gordon Central doesn't have a few playmakers. One of the guys I mentioned last week, DJ Fleetwood, he's a really good tight end. They have a few other weapons, and they have a new quarterback. He's a freshman. But so the battle of the youngins in this game, you have a sophomore quarterback, you have a freshman quarterback. But in the end, I'm going to have to take Coosa in this one. I just think they have a little bit more confidence, and I think that they have a little bit more toughness underneath their belt with a few of the games they've played.
So in review, we've picked the same, except for one game. You guys took Pepperell, and I took Temple.
That's right.
That's the only difference that we have so far. All right. Well, we're up against another break. When we come back, that we've covered all the games in 7A
Yes, we
D1,
have.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. We're going to shift over to 7AA, one game there, one game out of 7 AAA, and then one out of 5A. So we've got Rockmart at Cohola Creek, Lafayette at Adairsville, and Rome at Alexander still on the list. And then the game of the week that we chose for this week is Cass at Cedartown. That'll be at the end of the show, including an interview with Coach Abrams from Cedartown. So still a lot to cover. And we just want to take one more opportunity before we take a break to thank you for watching and ask you to stay tuned because we got more football to talk about. It's hard to believe it, folks, but already, what is this, week 6 of the high school football season? We just got a Go Eagles from a former Eagle who went to school with my dad when he was a Coosa Eagle, Lou Essick, who's chimed in again, said Go Eagles. So getting some support from a former, for an alum. So there you have it. All right, quick break. We'll be back.
Shop for your next car, truck, or SUV at Riverside Auto Group. Check out riversideautogroup.com today to browse their selection or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, and the all-new Riverside GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group. Visit riversideautogroup.com.
We welcome you back to this episode, our Week 6 edition of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. And we're glad to talk some high school football with you today. And we're just going to jump back into our picks. This next one, I'm not sure we're going to spend a lot of time on, and I certainly think we're all going to see it the same way. But the number 8 team in AA in the state, playing out of 7AA, Rockmart Yellow Jackets, playing a region game against Cohola Creek, the Colts. Series history-wise, Rockmart leads at 2-0. They haven't played since 2021, and the first 2 times that they played, it was pretty lopsided. And so, we haven't seen a matchup for the Yellow Jackets where they've been able to unload offensively on an opponent. We're going to see that this week. This is it. The Colts are giving up 35 points a game, and those numbers are going to look a little bit worse after this one. Not picking on the Colts, but more praise for the Rockmart Yellow Jackets because this is a good football team. And they played a really tough schedule, and I think that they're due a game where they can get out there and just really do what they do and get those athletes going. So I think you're going to see their speed, their size, their athleticism, all of it shine in this game, and they're going to click right out of the gate is the way I see it. But,
yeah, what did they call it in Marvel when Thanos snapped his fingers and then they came out? It was the blip, right?
The blip? Are you talking about what he said? Or?
No. I'm saying they called it the blip, right? Because the people came back. They snapped, they were gone. Well, we had a blip in Coahuila Creek history a few years ago. They were rocking and rolling, man. Like all of a sudden, you're like, well, this program has gotten over the hump. It was just a blip. They went right back down to earth the next season, and they've stayed there. And so I guess I am picking on the Colts just a little bit, but I think Rockmart absolutely waxes the floor. I will agree.
I thought you were going to say I am inevitable, but
Well, Rockmart winning is inevitable.
yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you. I'm gonna have to agree with you on this one. Rockmart, they've already gotten 2 of their toughest region foes out of the way, and now they get to exercise the demons of low-scoring affairs on Cooler Creek. Give me the Yellow Jackets to sting them.
One of the funny things for me is if you've got a room of 3 or 4 different people, typically you're going to have at least 3 different ways of pronouncing Coahulla Creek.
I'll agree. Yeah.
Koala Creek.
Okay. Well, you said Coahulla the first time. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Who knows?
What is it? I think it's Coahulla.
Coahulla's how I've always done it, but potato, right?
Exactly. Either way, Rockmart Yellow Jackets, we all agree, will win the game. We're moving to 7 AAA. It's going to be the Lafayette Ramblers at 0-4 facing the Adairsville Tigers, 3-1. Series history-wise, Adairsville leads 10-2. Other than 2 wins for the Ramblers in the early 90s, it's been tough sledding for the Lafayette Ramblers. Does it continue this week? Who wants to take this one first? Grayson's raises his hand, so you get the pick.
Yeah, Lafayette, they've been a little lackluster this year. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but I will say that Adairsville, they've had some tough tests. We saw them overcome some adversity against Pepperell, and, of course, they got blown out by their rival in Cass. And this region doesn't get, well, it gets a whole lot worse. If you're Lafayette, you have, I believe, Northwest Whitfield's in that region now. Did they move down to 3A, didn't they?
I believe so.
Yep, so Northwest Whitfield's in that region. They've been much improved this year, of course, Adairsville. And Calhoun. So it gets pretty bad from here. So I'm gonna have to take Adairsville on this one.
Yeah. 0-4 Ramblers heading to Adairsville. Only scenario I see here where this is a game for any period of time is if Adairsville is looking to next week. Because you know who they've got next week.
Calhoun.
That is correct. They got a big matchup with the Yellow Jackets that we'll probably talk a lot about next week. But we're in week 6, so let's focus on this one. Adairsville wins.
Keep the main thing the main thing.
Yep, I'm with you guys on this one. I think Adairsville, when you look at them, they have been the picture of consistency in football for a period of time, and Lafayette has really struggled 0-4. And you mentioned the trap game scenario. That might factor in for a quarter maybe, but I think that even if they get off to a rocky start, looking ahead and things of that sort, that Adairsville will right the ship. And honestly, I just think they're going to take control of the game pretty early. So we'll see what happens, but definitely going to pick the Adairsville Tigers to win this thing by at least a few touchdowns. So one more that we'll pick, and then we'll get ready for our game of the week that we're going to talk about pretty extensively coming up in just a little bit. But this is going to be in 5A, and we're talking about the Rome Wolves back in the top 10, ranked number 10 after their victory last week to open up region play over East Paulding. And they're going to be going on the road to take on the Alexander Cougars. Little series background here. Rome leads at 2-0. Their last meeting was in 2021. So it's been a few years since we've seen this one on the schedule. Rome comes in 1-2. They're 1-0 in region play. Meanwhile, Alexander, they're 1-3. The Cougs are, and they're 0-1 in region play. So, Ian, let's start with you on this particular game.
Yeah, let's. The Wolves are 1-2, and that might grab your eye, but let's consider that they lost to the Carrollton Trojans and then Toombs County, which a lot of people made a big deal about that Toombs County game because they're a smaller school. But this is a state championship caliber program that came in, and Rome has made some changes. Most importantly at the quarterback position, going with a little bit more of a dual threat option there. The defense gave up a touchdown in junk time last week, but they shut down an East Paulding team that was 3-1 coming in and was hungry to beat the Wolves at Barron Stadium. I feel like John Reed has hit the reset button. They're in region play now, looking to win yet another region championship. They are a favorite to do so. I'm going to go ahead and say they do it, and that means they have to beat the Alexander Cougars, and I think they do it handily.
Yeah, Rome won that game last week 27-7. They scored on their first 5 possessions. They were up 27-0 at halftime. You mentioned some changes. Aiden McPherson was 15-22 passing. This is from the Georgia High School Football Daily, 147 yards, rushed for 81 yards. So that dual threat action going there. And then I also saw in the notes that Jaden Harmon, who everybody knows is committed to Tennessee, scored on a couple of short runs while at the quarterback position and goal line type situations, again, from the Georgia High School Football Daily. And then they had some pretty long, or a long field goal, and then a short one there from their kicker. Rome's just one of those teams, they got off to a weird start to the season. We've talked about that for the last few weeks, and now you're starting to see them set into what we normally expect from a Rome team, which is not a surprise to anybody that follows the football program. They got a great coaching staff. You knew eventually they would start to connect the dots, get guys in the right places, find the formula that works for them, and those sorts of things. And anybody that follows football knows that throughout the course of the season, it's a work in progress, and they're going to continue to tweak things and fine-tune things to get where they need to be. But I don't think they're going to have any problems in this game. I think they're going to win it pretty big. And I think some big things could be in store for this Rome group as the season goes on. It'll be interesting to see if they can keep guys healthy and that kind of thing, where they'll be at once they get to the postseason at the end of the year. But anyway, let's flip it over and chat with Grayson.
I'm going to keep it short. Rome's been able to build some confidence after coming off of 2 losses. But, I mean, Toombs County, they're ridiculous. Their chances are probably greater than 80 chance to win state. Of course, Carrollton, number 7 in the nation. I think Rome is going to beat the absolute tar out of Alexander.
Oh.
Give me the Wolves.
All right. He didn't really mince words there. We knew exactly what he meant.
He went Coahuila Creek on it.
Mm-hmm. Well, with that said, we're going to take another break here, kind of catch our breath. And Ian, before we take the break, tell us a little bit about what's to come on the show, man.
Yeah. We each week we have our featured game of the week, and this week that game is the Cass Colonels traveling to Cedartown to take on the Bulldogs. So we usually get both coaches on the horn and ask them their thoughts on the game. Unfortunately, Coach Steve Gates from Cass could not speak with us today. He was with the family of his quarterback who suffered a broken leg in last week's game. So we didn't get a chance to talk to him, but Jamie Abrams did call in and give us his thoughts on the game. So we'll hear from him, and then we'll come back and we'll break this game down amongst the 3 of us.
All right. That's what's coming up next here. Coach Jamie Abrams, head coach of the Cedartown Bulldogs, talk about their game, Cass at Cedartown. That's coming up here on This Week in Northwest Georgia Football.
Shop for your next car, truck, or SUV at Riverside Auto Group. Check out riversideautogroup.com today to browse their selection or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, and the all-new Riverside GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group. Visit riversideautogroup.com.
Welcome back, everybody. This is This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. Glad to have you with us, and also glad to have our special guest that we're going to have on the program today. It is Coach Jamie Abrams, head coach of the Cedartown Bulldogs, having an excellent season so far. And, Coach, again, off to a hot start, have a big-time opponent coming to town Friday night. What has your team shown you so far this season, and what has attributed to your early success this year?
I just think, we've got an older group of kids who played a lot of football, and anytime you got that, you got a chance to be successful. And, they've grown a little bit, grown since last year, and grown physically and maturity-wise. So just not really surprised by it, just kind of expected them to do what they've done so far.
Excellent. Well, Coach, you get this ball game at home. You're in region play. You're kind of the new kid on the block when it comes to playing in this particular region with some of these teams. Cass is a heck of a team. But I want to get your feelings on the home traditions and ask you some of your favorite traditions and how playing in front of this Cedartown crowd gives the Dogs an advantage.
Cedartown has an outstanding tradition. And that has more to do with the people who came before us and before myself and before these players and most of our coaches. We do have 2 coaches on staff that played here at different times. So I think, they help with some of that. But I just think, it's actually our legacy night this Friday night where we'll do a rec, and then we'll honor some guys from the past as well. And I just think that those things are important in keeping traditions and keeping traditions going. A lot of our players, dads and brothers and cousins and uncles and friends and they played here, and we don't have any transfer players or anything like that. So I think it's important that they have something bigger than themselves to play for, and I think that's what high school football is about and what it was supposed to be about back before the transfer portal became popular. I just think I think that's a big thing, is just having those guys at the whole town, in front of them, and the whole town talking about it. And I just think that's what you get here with a small town and small town football in a place that's had a tradition like Cedartown.
Coach, Ian had referenced earlier how tough this region is, how brutal it is, and your team being one of the newcomers. So how do you implement the one game at a time mentality and keep your guys focused each week when it is a tough slate of games that you face in region?
Well, that's kind of been our thing anyway. We we got to live in the moment and can't look too far ahead and certainly don't want to look behind. So we're kind of familiar with some of the teams in this region. We played a couple of them in non-region and scrimmages and different things like that. So it's not like we're totally unfamiliar with them. Obviously do know how competitive the region was, especially last year when everybody was 5A and we were 4. So I just think that's kind of who we are anyway, and what we've already done and kind of what we've established is taking it one game at a time and not overlooking anyone.
Well, Coach, we'll dive into this Cass team a little bit. They've got a ton of really good players. Obviously, last week they lost their starting quarterback to a devastating injury, but there are a lot of D1 guys, and I'm sure they'll have that next man up mentality just like every team tries to preach. What are your impressions of Coach Gates' program and what players stand out on film from this Cass team?
Coach Gates and I got to our current schools at the same time, which was about the worst time you could ever go somewhere, which is right when COVID shut everything down. So, and he and I have known each other for a while, and we've scrimmaged them the last 3 years. Or 2 years, I should say. I think 2 or 3 anyway. We're very familiar with one another. Obviously, some of their identity may change depending on who's taking the snaps now. I think we got to figure that out from a defensive standpoint whenever they get here and we get the game rolling. So, and they have a ton of talent still on their roster. They've been very dangerous and put up a bunch of points in the non-region schedule. So we just got to go and figure it out. Up front, I think they're really good. They're really big on both sides of the ball up front, and they've got some guys in the back on defense that can go get it, as well as the skill guys on offense. I mean, they're loaded. They got a loaded roster of guys that can make things happen.
Well, Coach, we always like to wrap up these conversations by kind of running down some keys to the game. So we're curious, and you kind of touched on this throughout, but just to kind of put a bow on our conversation and wrap everything up and wind down, what do the Dogs have to do well? What boxes need to be checked to get the win coming up on Friday night?
Well, I think there's, it doesn't matter who you're playing. I just think there's certain things you got to do to win football games. I think you got to be able to run the ball. You got to be able to stop the run. I tell our kids this every week. You can't beat yourselves with turnovers you need to win the turnover battle, and you can't beat yourself with foolish penalties. I think you got to play really good on special teams and win the field position battle, and then and you got to win in the fourth quarter. I truly believe in those 5 things as how you win football games.
All right, Coach. Thank you so much for your time, and best of luck coming up this weekend.
All right, thank you.
All right, that's going to wind down our conversation with Coach Jamie Abrams, head coach of the Cedartown Bulldogs. Always appreciate his time, and we're going to take a break and hear a word from our sponsor, Riverside Auto Group. And we appreciate you listening to this episode of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football. We'll return in just moments.
Shop for your next car, truck, or SUV at Riverside Auto Group. Check out riversideautogroup.com today to browse their selection or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, and the all-new Riverside GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group. Visit riversideautogroup.com.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back here at WLAQ for the final game of our pick show that airs every Thursday. And this game we're going to be talking about from Region 7 4A, the Cass Colonels, I should say. I don't know why they say colonels, or colonels, should be colonels. At the Cedartown Bulldogs. And this one's a major region matchup. We just saw Cass fall to Hiram in what was a major region test, and sometimes stuff like that just happens. And, well, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Brody McWhorter had surgery today, so now they no longer have the number 1 quarterback in the state of Georgia for 2026. So that's a major problem if you're Cass. I mean, it's just really unfortunate that you have something like that happen, especially when you open region play and you play Cedartown, which is one of the premier programs here in the state of Georgia. One of the things that I'd like to mention is Cedartown. Their secondary is ridiculous. They have 2 guys that are Power 5 committed, of course. We have GPB All-State, Clemson commit, and Tay Harris, and then we also have Patrick Gardner at corner and wide receiver committed to the University of Kentucky. So they have a lot of good pieces there, and of course they have DeMarcus Gardner, their leading rusher, or their leading receiver from last season. So the thing for me in this game is Cass. They have Braylon Hill, who he's a gamer. I got to see him play in person. He breaks tackles like it's nothing, and he's quick as mess. And what Coach Gates mentioned to me in my interview with him was that he was a difference maker there in that Calhoun game last year. But in the end, Cass not having Brody McWhorter, the West Virginia commit, in this game is going to be the difference to me. So I just think that Cedartown, they're going to be too much. The rushing game's just going to be ridiculous. So I'm going to have to take the Dogs at home over Cass.
All right, let's go over to Ian Griffin and see if he agrees.
Yeah, this is still a tough one, in my opinion. Let's not forget that before, they took on that North Cobb team in week 3, which was just another level of opponent. This Cass team, their defense was absolutely shutting everyone down, and they had a 2-score lead over Hiram before McWhorter went down. Not being able to sustain drives can make a great defense look pedestrian. If they're on the field the whole game, sometimes they're going to wear down, and this is going to be a war of attrition. Cedartown likes to pound the rock. They run that wing tee. They're going to just grind it out on you, play solid defense, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. I think Cass, that's a recipe for Cass to stay in this ball game, because I think their defense is solid enough to keep it low scoring. Can they pound the rock without McWhorter there? Taking the vertical passing game away as they bring a new quarterback in the system. They're going to have to run the ball. That's going to be the difference in this game. Can Cass move the ball on the ground. That unknown is too much for me to pick the Colonels to go and get the win on the road. I'm going to take Cedartown to win this one at home, but I think it's low scoring. I think it's close. I think Cass goes out there and puts up a heck of a fight.
Yeah, when you look back at what happened in the game last week, they were thrown into that situation when they were under fire. Now they've had a week to absorb that. Obviously, that's not a long time, but they've had a chance to prepare for it, make some adjustments and things of that sort, and get prepared for this game. And so we'll see, how they've taken to that and what their mental sharpness is in this game under the new scenario now that they've had a chance to kind of deal with that for about a week. So I'm really curious. I'm curious to see how they're able to respond. But at the end of the day, I'm kind of with you with those unknowns. I'm uncomfortable taking Cass to win this game because we know what Cedartown is. They know what they're good at. They're able to do it. Other teams know what they're good at. Cedartown's still able to do it, those sorts of things. So, can you stop their run and slow that down? And obviously they've got a great defense as well. So I think from top to bottom, because of the injury and that sort of thing, I might have picked Cedartown anyway. I'm not sure.
Sure, yeah, right. I think it was good. It was the game of the week before we knew Brody McWhorter was done for the year. So, but yeah, I'm with you. I could have gone the other way, but that's just too big of a factor, too big of a loss for them.
It is. So I'm going to go with you guys. I'm going to take Cedartown in this game, and certainly, we want to wish the best to Cass and their quarterback and what he's dealt with and the whole team and all that kind of stuff. We've seen a lot of these types of things happen over the course of the season, and you hate seeing that. You really do. But,
hey, dude, this was a team. Our cohort here picked them to win a state championship, and I think that was within reach with McWhorter under center.
I think I probably jinxed that, but you never know. It's too early to tell.
That's right.
Song says very superstitious.
Well, as we get ready to wind down, we'll mention to you one more time, we were going to pick the Horizon at Unity Christian School game this week, but that one is no longer on the list as Horizon had to forfeit. Unity tried to get another game to fill that slot, could not do that. Didn't work out, so we don't have that one today, but we certainly wish Unity the best of luck the rest of the season. Another team that's off this week of note, Calhoun Yellow Jackets. They've got a bye week this week, so I think they do, don't they?
I believe so.
Okay, I wrote that down, and then I'm like, well, maybe I forgot to change my I can't remember.
Big game next week with the Daresville when they come back.
That's right. Yeah. So anyway, that's pretty much all we got for you today. But just want to take one more opportunity to thank our panel here, Grayson Atkins, who is an intern for WLAQ and also V3. And then, of course, back on this side of the table, we got Ian Griffin of V3 and WLAQ Sports, and I'm Matt Davis with WLAQ Sports. And, guys, it's been a pleasure to get to talk to you again this week and look forward to this weekend's action. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. We'll be under the lights in Haralson County tomorrow night with the Darlington Tigers. Looking forward to that and looking forward to hearing all about the games around the region. We encourage you all, if you're listening, if you're following any of our area teams, after the games, the Rome Orthopedic High School Football Scoreboard Show, that goes down right here at the studios of WLAQ. Call in and tell the Butler boys what you saw on the field. We want to hear from you and get your insights on the games that went down on Friday night because nobody knows it better than the people who are sitting in the stands watching it go down.
That's right. So make sure to write down this number if you'd like to call those guys at the end of the night's action, as Ian suggested, 706-232-7767. I wish I had a graphic. I'd flash it on the screen for you, but 706-232-7767 for the Rome Orthopedic Center High School Football Scoreboard Show after Darlington football at the end of the night's action. Well, that's going to put a wrap on it. Thank you, guys. For Grayson Atkins and Ian Griffin, I'm Matt Davis saying so long, everybody. Hope your team wins this weekend. This has been another edition of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football.
This has been another edition of This Week in Northwest Georgia Football, brought to you by Riverside Auto Group and produced by WLAQ Sports. We appreciate you tuning in and invite you to tune in again next week. Please like, share, and subscribe.